Alright, here's a prepping video you guys have been asking for. It is that time of the year that I need to get some of my seeds started. In fact, I might be a little bit late, but I have a month before we probably have a risk of a last freeze here. So I wanted to show you what I had tried last year and the year before, and I'm going to do something different. Each time you got to kind of improve, but I had used these trays first, these Jiffy strips. And I was not actually that thrilled with them, and I'll tell you why. Because the roots don't seem to penetrate this. There's a hole on the bottom, the roots will come through, but you kind of got to break this whole thing apart to be able to plant your plants. And it just didn't seem to work well for me, and also it seemed like I had some chance for mold growing when I was doing my seed starting. So then I tried the next product, again Jiffy. Oh, and by the way, I used this seed starting mix, and I didn't think that really held moisture very well either, so I'm going to make a change. But I tried these pellets, and these worked reasonably well. The roots kind of came through everywhere. This is all dried up from last year, but that worked reasonably well, but it didn't have as much soil mass as you would like. But what I would do is I would start the seeds in this. When I started seeing a decent amount of roots coming out, then I'd put them in these pots. And it worked reasonably well. In fact, you can see one of the things down in there, but it still was not optimal to me. So this year, I'm going to use a potting mix instead of this seed starting mix. And then I'm going to use some of the trays that I have left over from where I bought marigolds and other things. I've been keeping them for years, and I have a whole bunch of these things. So I kind of stacked them all up, got them all ready, and I'm going to go ahead and fill it with the potting mix and then start my seeds using the potting mix. Now there's one more toy I bought. You can make soil blocks out of it. That's what it's a soil block maker. And I'm going to do a tray of this as well and see if it works. But you have to have kind of a certain mixture, and I think the potting mix will be the right mixture for it to kind of hold together. But you basically, fill that with soil, kind of compact it in there, and then all you do is you press the handle, and that dumps out some blocks. So we're going to try to experiment with that and see how that works out as well. So that's got a couple different things going on today. I'm probably going to start these inside in my basement because I have heat mats and I have LED lights, and we're going to get them started for the first couple weeks, and then I'll bring them out here into my newly roofed greenhouse that I've got. But I need to actually kind of demold the whole thing. I've got some spray that I'm going to use, not bleach, and try to get the mold under control, because that had been open for like 2 years where we had a huge snow load and kind of screwed up the roofing. So we're going to get that back fully functional this year. I have one more thing that I'm going to work on, hopefully today. I bought some poultry netting, and I'm going to make a temporary fence. So let me show you what I have in mind. All right, so I had this idea that I'm going to take that poultry netting and kind of put it around my fruit trees that I planted last year, because the chickens will scratch and dig up all the roots and everything. And then what I'm going to do is let them kind of have access to this large area that I'm going to plant. In fact, I may focus them on this upper part of the hill first, because that's probably what I'm going to plant first. And so I was thinking about kind of isolating this this level right here to where they can only get to the upper level, and then that'll allow them to kind of eat all the grass and everything before I get in here rototilling. From what I understand, you really don't want to rototill grass and everything into your furrows and everything, because it apparently absorbs nitrogen as it's decaying. So I think this would be one way that I'll actually kind of get some fertilizer from the chickens and also get them to clean it up. I mean, this is the area the chickens stay in, which is a huge area, and they completely denude it of any vegetation. Now, during the peak growing season, some vegetation does get in here, and I guess there's just certain things they don't eat, but I end up having to mow this a couple times a year down here. But that's my idea. So once I get that cleared and we get it all prepped and everything, then I'll let them go in the lower level, and I have a gate down there for that. And that way they can clear that out, and that's going to be more of my summer planted stuff. So anyways, it's a big area. This is I forget what the distance is on this. Might be 50 feet wide and 100 feet long or something. It's a pretty big area. But I planted watermelons on this hill, and I ended up with fantastic crimson, I can't remember if it was crimson tide watermelons. They were really excellent and large, and just planted in rabbit manure. So that's what I got to do. Got to get to work on this. So I just realized it looks like we got some rain clouds rolling in, so I got to move all my stuff underneath the covered area so that I can at least get my planting started. But that's the way it works sometimes. Just got to roll with it. I probably could just do this all down in the greenhouse, but it's a little warm in there, so I want to do it in the open air. I wanted to show you, I got my helpers out here. Hey, look. There's Doug out there. All right, so I need to move this stuff up onto the porch now. All right, here's my experiment with the soil blocks. This particular mix is not holding together perfectly, but it may be adequate. We'll find out after I stick some seeds in and water it to see if it just kind of falls apart. But I'd like my other approach better. This is using the stuff from basically the big box stores like Home Depot. So there's individual little trays of 6. So each one of these holds 36 total plants. You can see it's like the Bonnie plants. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 of those times 36. Plus I have this marigold one, which I may plant marigolds again. So that one holds 18. And then I got another one down here that holds 18. So I got to go in there and count how much room I have and under the LED lights, and we'll see how much more I can plant. But I usually do like 2 separate batches. So I'll start one batch, and then I'll have a second batch in reserves, because sometimes things don't work out. Like last year I had a pretty late freeze and it hurt me pretty bad. But this year, if I see something like that coming, I'll probably get my plastic up and protect everything. But last year it's just too busy. Can't do everything. So let's see what how this fits out on the table. All right, here's my setup. Same setup I had last year. I've got these LED grow lights that I got from Home Depot, and I built a little structure to kind of hold the grow lights up. The only thing is I'm going to modify this slightly, because I want to get those lamps right down on top of the beds and then have it adjustable. So I'm going to do that this year. This may not be high enough density for the distance that I have. I also have a heat mat underneath, and it's, let me see what the temperature is in here. So it's maybe 64, 65 degrees. So this is nothing to sneeze at. I think this is about 180 plants, if I calculated this right. 36, 64. No, I think I was out of whack. Yeah, 36 per tray. Yeah, so there's about 180 plants at the capacity here. And I have another setup that I could extend the table off the end here and put 2 more lights, so I could get 2 more, actually, yeah, just 2 more lights, so 2 more trays. But this is more than enough, because this is a pain in the butt to plant this many. Now, keep in mind, not everything matures at the same rate. So you're not necessarily going to go one day, okay, I got to plant all 200 plants. It doesn't really work that way. But I wanted to just show you this approach. This is year 2. Actually, it's year 3. Year 2, I actually had reasonably good results. Just had a late freeze that screwed me. And so this one is just going back to the basics, and I think this will work a lot better. I think this is better soil. So I just got to kind of now, plan my seeds, what I'm going to plant. I'm thinking about these bigger ones over here, using for like my tomato plants, because they have a more substantial root system. Then I can pretty much plant everything else over here. But I got to get the seeds out and figure out what I'm going to do for my garden this year. I usually do jalapenos. I usually use bell peppers. I got my onions already out there, so they've got probably another, we'll see, month or 2 before they're pulled up, and that frees up more space for summer for my bell peppers and everything. All right, here's a sampling of a number of seeds, and I kind of recommend, I've got several packs of these. These are 32 varieties, and these are all heirloom, and so I try to use quite a bit of this, but I mean, you'd have to have like an acre or more to be able to plant everything they got in here. And this covers you throughout all the seasons of the year. But I also have a number of seeds that I picked up last year. There's the watermelons I used, fantastic watermelons. Okra. Now I got to tell you, a couple of these things you need to soak first, like okra especially. Very hard seed, and you need to soak it for several days. You probably should look it up. I'll have to look it up before I do it because I can't remember how many days, but you got to kind of crack that husk before you plant it. And then like beans and cucumbers, these things grow incredibly quick. So they're going to be in, I'll probably do one of these 6 trays each for each. So one bean and one cucumber, because it doesn't take many to grow for like a family of 2. I'm going to actually take some of the beets out here and go put them in my garden right now because I've already got some of the beets growing. I also have some radishes and carrots growing, so I've got to go supplementing because they're just all taking off. Even though I planted them last year, they're now sprouting this year. I've got some cilantro because I make a lot of salsa, and then bell peppers and jalapeno peppers, and I got several different types of tomatoes that we're going to grow. And then here's some marigolds that I'm going to plant. I'll probably do a whole tray of marigolds, and I like to put them in between my pepper plants and various plants because they're pollinator attractors. So they're really useful. So I'll probably do a whole tray, and they grow very, very large. So you just probably need, one of these for each one of your beds, and it'll be fine. So one of the things that you can do is these are some sweet potatoes that are left over from last year. And you notice how I'm getting some sprouts now. As the temperature warms up, these really start coming out. And what you do is when they get a little bit longer, you just snap them off and you just stick them in some water. And this is called slips. And if you look at this right here, do you see how all the roots are growing down the part that's touching in the water? Anyways, I got to add a little bit more water in here. But then what I'm going to do now is stick these in the soil down there, all the soil that I prepared. And I'm going to have my own sweet potato plants. This is the way you grow sweet potatoes. You take slips like this and you just stick them in the soil. And these are going to keep producing over here. And I'll just keep taking them off and putting them in soil. But, I've already got quite a few here. It doesn't take a whole lot of plants, but I'll probably do at least 20 plants. The other thing is some of these were really long, and I ended up cutting them just above where a leaf was coming out. And I'll probably cut this again, and I'll create another slip because you don't need these very long. So I'll be able to create even more. But I was trying to find out if the cut ones were actually going to grow any roots, and you can see this one's growing right there by that leaf. Anyways, this is super easy. I'm going to stick some of these, I may give it another day or so, and then I'll stick them in the soil down there. So I stuck my okra seeds in the water this morning, and if you look in there, you can see a couple of them are starting to crack now. These are very hard husks that are around the okra seeds, and you've got to be able to break those through. So if you notice the bottom left about 7 o'clock, and then you notice straight o'clock at like 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock, you can see quite a few of these are cracking. So they're not quite ready yet, but we're going to leave these in probably another day, and then they'll be ready for planting. So I'm going to do a whole tray. In this case, it'll be 12 plants of sweet potatoes. And then this tray, I'm going to do 6 watermelon, 6 cantaloupe, and 3 types of tomatoes. So that'll be 18 plants of tomatoes, and then 6 of okra. And then I'm going to do 4 of these 6 things right here. So 24 marigold. And then I'm going to do cucumber and green beans back there. And, here's some of the things I'm looking at. Tomato, Best Boy Hybrid, beefsteak, red currant. We love these cherry tomatoes. And then cantaloupe, watermelon. I actually have some other cantaloupe over here. I'm probably going to mix it up. Now in my basement, I have a nice double sink and a table. And what I do is I get my water going just a little bit, and then I put it on sprayer mode like that. And then I just come over here and dampen the soil. This is really convenient. Just like that. Nothing fancy. I thought you might want to see what the beans look like. Now, I like using pole beans because they sure take up a lot less space, and I'm going to tell you, we had a heck of a lot more production out of the pole beans. I think they're tastier anyways. And then this is what the cucumber seeds look like. Now, more than likely, the way these things are going to grow, we're going to start them in these smaller, they're going to grow super fast, and then I'll transplant them into some of the 4-inch pots as they get larger, and then I'll move them out into the greenhouse. That'll be the same with the tomato plants and everything else. The marigolds can grow out in these just fine, and then I'll plant them directly in the garden, kind of interspersed with my tomatoes and everything else. All right, let's keep going. I think I'm going to work on some lettuces now. I got all kinds of lettuces, so I'm going to do a couple trays of lettuces, and then after these start growing, I'll plant them out there and grow some more because they grow pretty doggone quick. All right, so I've had some potatoes. These are red potatoes that were left over from last year, some of the smaller ones, and I just kind of kept them. They're looking kind of pathetic, but these things will grow like crazy when I put them in the ground. You can see they're all sprouted, so I'm going to just kind of, I probably can get a big long row of just these potatoes, and that'll make a lot of potatoes. I won't have to cut these or anything because they're all pretty small size. And then I went and bought, these are 10 pounds of similar type red. Boy, I can't even grab that thing. And a couple of these are monster. You can see how big it is in my hand. So I can get probably 6 or 8 pieces out of this one. And you can see how these are sprouting, so you want to try to get a couple eyes per piece. It's kind of funny, this backside doesn't have any eyes at all. So anyways, these will all grow pretty good. So I'm got a 5-gallon bucket. I'm going to start cutting these up and let them scab over, and by the end of the week I should be able to start planting everything, weather permitting. We got kind of a dreary, drizzly day today, so I thought I'd do some things with my greenhouse. So the first thing I want to do was try to knock down some of the mold and algae that's growing in there. And I've had good luck using like this spray and forget, and this is a highly concentrated thing, so I'm just going to do like a gallon sprayer and spray around the bottom and outside of my greenhouse and try to knock down the algae. The other thing is I started collecting a bunch of materials. So here's all kinds of shelving. I found this on Facebook Marketplace. Somebody had bought this shelving, and I guess they tossed the poles that go in between it, but that's okay. I'm just going to make a frame that this sets on anyways. Something that'll last forever. That's great. And then today I picked up from a veterinarian's office. They were changing out this huge, fantastic stainless sink. And this thing's about 5 feet tall. It's probably about 18 to 20 inches wide and 4 inches deep. And it even has a tray that kind of sits on top of it. And I thought this would be great for potting. I'm just going to remove the faucet thing on the top, and then I'll take this drain thing off on the bottom. And what I'll do is when I'm potting, I'll just put a 5-gallon bucket underneath there. When I'm done potting all my stuff up, I'll just scrape all the soil out into the 5-gallon bucket. But I think this will be great. I could eventually actually run some water out there, but right now it's really not necessary. So I'm going to try a product on this greenhouse. You can see that it's got a lot of mold because I had a defective roof. This Harbor Freight stuff just has a piss poor design for the roof. So now I've enhanced it significantly, and there's really no leaks at all. But what's happened is because it was leaking so long, the whole thing has got mold all over it. So I'm going to spray this stuff called Wet and Forget. There's also Spray and Forget. There's a couple different brands. But I think this one has like a copper to it, but you can see where it was leaking inside. So I'm just going to kind of, wherever I see this mold, I'm just going to kind of spray that stuff. And you just use a pump sprayer. Holds 2 gallons. And we'll see how it works out. Okay, this is just a couple days in the ground, and I've already got some okra popping up, but this has to do with the fact that I was soaking these seeds. And so you can see those are coming. It won't take long before we start seeing, in fact, we'll probably see in a second, the green beans and everything are coming up. In fact, I've already got some marigolds coming up all throughout here, and there's cucumbers. So we are seeing life. I started this lettuce a couple days later, but you can see there's already one lettuce popping up. Full-bodied lab carpenter here helping me. I'm making a support system that's 11.5 feet long roughly for my greenhouse. I'm using some cinder blocks that are going to go underneath this support on the ends and in the middle. And then I've got wire shelving that's going to sit on this, so this should give plenty of support. But it's super humid out here and I'm sweating bullets. That's the way it is. Good stuff though. The real fun part is after I screw this together, I was thinking about getting out my nail gun, but I only have a few pieces I got to screw together here. And then I got to carry this bad boy in there. Probably not much heavier than those cinder blocks. Did you know the 8x8x16 are about 30 to 35 pounds a piece, and carry 2 of those is pretty dang heavy. So anyways, we're getting her done. Once I get this piece screwed together, I can put it in there and lay the first level of shelving. First layer of shelving, I should say. Rooster always wants to get in the shot, just like Dougie here. I'm waiting for him to kick one of those boards over. He'll be sorry. Anyways, you can see Lucky over there laying down. He's like, hey, can we go back inside? All right, I just finished doing one side of my greenhouse. And this is pretty substantial. I've got a base of 20 inches for shelving that's about 3 feet high. And then I set up another rack that's 2 feet taller, and those are about 18 inches. And I'll be able to put some of the taller plants up there out of the way. So anyways, over on that side, I got to get rid of these old rabbit hutches, but I'm going to put a 5-foot stainless sink that I'm going to use for doing all my potting. And then I'll have another shelving unit on this side, or I should say bench and shelf unit. And so it'll be like a U-shaped thing, but tons of room in this thing. This ought to be fantastic. All right, so that's a really good start. This actually will get me functional as my seeds progress. I've actually got a spot I can move these out here, and I can work on this other part at my leisure. All right, I thought I would show you the progress of my seeds. It's only been like 2 days. But here is my sweet potatoes. Remember, all I did is these were sprouting off of the sweet potatoes I grew last year, and I just cut off or broke off the sprouts, and I just stuck them in a little bit of water like this. They grew roots, and you can see I'm getting leaves on these now. So these are taking off fantastic. So these grow really fast. Now this is jalapenos and bell peppers, and I'm not seeing anything yet. We'll have to see. Sometimes I plant these things a little too deep. We'll see how it works out. This is cantaloupes, watermelon, and some tomatoes, but so far only the okras popped out here. That's that right there. Over here are marigolds, and there's actually quite a few marigolds coming up here. And then in the back, that is on this side, cucumber. And then over here are the green beans. Whoops, sorry. There's a green bean right there coming up. Those things are fantastic. Now, this is a tray of lettuce. I'm not seeing anything here, but this one's showing a number of lettuce coming up already. You can see there's tons of them in here. So we'll have to see. These might have been too old. We'll find out. I'll give them a little bit more time. Again, sometimes I'm not real good about planting. I may have planted those a little too deep. Lettuce are super small seeds, and you're only supposed to put them like a 1/4 inch below the ground. And this one I might have done a little too deep. It's kind of a little more exacting than you think, but these are coming along for a couple days. That's actually a pretty good start. These beans, they grow so dang fast. I'll probably have to transfer them out to the greenhouse pretty quick, and even, the cucumbers, same thing. All right, so we got our little temporary fence set up. We'll have to see if that contains the chickens, so they can come in here and clean out all of the grass that might be a problem with rototilling. It won't take them long to figure this out. I got the gate open here. They didn't quite understand what we were doing when I was working in here, so they were all huddled at the fence, but I'm sure they'll get in here over the next couple days. I hope it doesn't take them long to clean that out. Should be lots to work on. So this is day 2 of me letting my chickens over into my garden area, where I'm hoping they can get rid of a lot of the grass and everything that's growing. And it's starting to work. This, the other area where they're normally at, there's no grass or anything, and chickens just love scratching. So they're going to prep this area for me, I'm hoping, in short order, because I would love to get in here and start planting some potatoes and sweet potatoes, everything. I did buy 10 pounds of red potatoes today, seed potatoes. So I'd like to get them in the ground here pretty soon, but I'd like to get all the grass kind of cleaned out first. And this is like free feed for the chickens. They'll find all kinds of bugs and they'll kind of pick this thing pretty clean. So I'm hoping they do this fairly quickly. You'd be surprised how fast they can do this. I wish my chickens would hurry up and clean this area out. They're slowly working on it. That rooster didn't know I was here, so he just kind of woke up and said, "Where'd you come from?" But they're slowly working it. They're actually doing a pretty good job. I didn't start this process soon enough. As soon as I can get them getting this pretty well cleaned out, I'll go ahead and plant the majority of my potatoes in here. And then I'll open up this lower level and let them go to town on that area. It's funny, they come over here in the afternoon. I don't know why. I mean, it's 5:20 and they're over here working this field. I may have to quit feeding them for a little bit and let them come out here and clean this up. That's probably the problem. I feed them in the morning.
So I hope everybody's treating you well. I hope you're doing well. Do the best you can. God bless.